What is up, everybody? In today's video we are going to be running AN fuel lines for my rear wheel drive K series. All that in today's episode. My name is Ryan. This is Project Race Car. Let's get into it. So here is how the car sits. It has the K Power Industries. We have a AN line here and an AN line here, and then two AN lines down on the regular hard lines on the fuel system. So one big difference with the K-Series swap from the TSX to the E30 is that the E30 has a return to gas tank system, whereas the TSX and the RSX do not. So today we are going to be creating our own system and our own lines for the K-Swap E30. So we have a fuel lamp, a pressure regulator, a manual gauge, an NPT to AN fitting, and then a bunch of deatschwerks fittings, as well as deatschwerks lines, and then two straights. So we have 390s, one 120, and then two straights to finish this fuel system. So all the AN fittings are super nice, very clean, and then the actual CPE hose is very thick and feels very durable and like it will last. So I'm hoping we won't have any leaks. Let me show you how I'm going to set this pressure regulator up and what we are going to do with that. If you guys could drop a like on today's video, you guys have been crushing it with like 50 likes per video. So I have been very thankful and I appreciate all of your guys' support. But let's check this fuel system out. So there are a couple ways to do this, but we are going to set up our fuel pressure regulator. We're gonna set a vacuum source up top, the fuel gauge right here, the actual pressure gauge. We will need to put some thread sealer on here just so that we don't have any leaks. I'm gonna get a fuel safe one. When you mount a fuel pressure regulator after the fuel rail, all we will need to do is have a one going in and then one coming out back into the fuel tank. So on one side, we are going to use an NPT cap, and we are going to cap one side. The other side is coming from the, we will need to put a AN adapter on the other side, and then one AN adapter on the bottom. So it will have this kind of look to it, right? One cap and then two AN. On one of the ANs, I'm gonna put a 90 degrees, and that's gonna be coming from after the fuel rail. So it will be positioned right at the end of the fuel rail, and a line will be coming in. And then we're gonna do another 90 off, and that is gonna be facing towards the return line. And after we tighten everything down and make sure that we get all the lines plugged up, this is what the fuel pressure regulator is going to look like. We will need to, up top, we can adjust the actual pressure, but we will need to obviously have fuel to do that. But that is basically the gist of it. Let me show you where I'm gonna mount it. So custom stuff can always be a little bit daunting, but you want this enough out of the way, but also being able to see the gauge when you need to. You don't want it next to anything hot or anything that's moving. So I'm gonna keep this on the intake side, and I was thinking about just putting it right around here. So after doing a little bit of fitting, I think that if we mount it right here, we will still be able to see the gauge, but also the fuel lines will make sense with their actual routing. I've seen some people mount the fuel pressure regulator on the rail, but I figured doing it after would be good. So I think if you mount it like that, you're still able to see the gauge. It's not by anything that's moving. or anything that is too hot. So when fitting these on, obviously you guys can see that one of them is black and one of them is titanium. I did originally order black, all of them, but they said that they were like 6 weeks out for the black one. So I figured just mix match them. I don't care that much. It still kind of works. It's not like they're blue or red or anything like that. So it still kind of goes along with the theme. So you guys can see that I picked a 90 and a 120. So it's gonna come off of the pump line, and then we're going to probably fight it in between here, and then go straight into the 90. It's gonna come in, deliver fuel to all the fuel rail, and then we're gonna kick back and down in this crack, then down in this hole, and then it's going to come out and then hit the fuel pressure regulator, and then whatever fuel is not used will go back into the tank. This is my first time doing it. I will be kind of learning along with you guys, like everything on this project, but low-key, I think that it's coming together. We're super close, and I think the E30 is gonna be driving mint here soon. So off camera, I went ahead and put some tape on the vacuum line and tape on the gauge. That way it hopefully doesn't leak. And then I also put some lubricant on the gaskets, that way they don't rip or anything. And then we got the bolt set up and everything all bolted down to the actual regulator. So we are going to fit this in, and then we can start actually routing the fuel lines. So I figured that wasn't a terrible spot for it. So we are going to start with our first line and kind of get that routed, and then we will feed everything in. This is kind of a tedious day and a very tedious process of making fuel lines, but they are quite simple and easy. I started and practiced with this first line on the bottom of the fuel rail. That's just going to be a straight to start off the line. So if I'm not mistaken, the top line is the feed line, and then the bottom line is the return. If I don't get it right, it will be easy to just swap. You know, I won't be getting fuel, and so that'll be an easy diagnosis thing if I do get it wrong. But I'm going with the top one being the feed line. So obviously I got extra fuel line, but I think it's always worth it to get extra rather than not having enough. I believe I got 6 feet, but I might have also gotten 10, so I'm not totally sure. Man, that smells terrible. Okay, so then once you finish it, there's gonna be some stuff in there. Once you finish the cut, you're just gonna wanna blow that line out because otherwise the rubber gets in there. So lines are super easy. They're just, again, obnoxious and tedious. So you pull off the bottom end. Some will have a actual thread in here, but others don't. So this one really just uses the pressure to clamp it shut. And what you're gonna do is you're going to feed this guy in here. And you can see in there, you'll see a lip. And so you really want to make sure that it goes on straight and completely goes all the way up. So we're going to take on a disc and just push it in and make sure that it sits flat. I double checked the length of the hose and made sure that it was the correct length. So now that this is fully seated, we're just going to slowly push this in and twist it. And you want to make sure that you're having constant force down. That way you're not just pushing the hose out. And it's gonna start off easy and then progressively get more and more difficult. So you can normally get a decent amount before you need to actually break out the wrench. So you can also give it a little tug and make sure that it's actually seating. Otherwise, you won't have a full good clamping force. I was quite nervous for this actual process because it seems very daunting and it seems like you need to know what you're doing, but you know, here I am. We'll obviously see how the system actually turns out, but most of these projects are actually easier than you guys think that they are, and I know that you guys can figure it out, and you know, it's all just about learning it and getting through it. These guys, we won't fully close this gap. We'll just get really, really close. So you don't want to bottom them out. Then we make sure that fully seated, and that is one line done. Let's get this thing fitted. So this just fits through here and boom, goes down and attaches to the line. Easy as that. Now we will work on this guy. So this will kick it under the intake right here. So we're gonna get this one fitted and then we will measure the other line. Cool, we have another line, nice and snug. These fittings are really, really good and the hose feels like really high quality. I do highly recommend spending some extra money and getting good AN lines, as you won't have to worry about them and they are very safe and good quality. So with this one, we are going to run it under the intake. So we'll have to feed this all through and make sure that it is coming through here. So we'll come out of the thing, go underneath the throttle body, and then when you're coming down, we're gonna miss the alternator plug, swing to the right a bit. We'll miss the throttle cable as well, and then it will go directly into here. So we're just gonna mark a line and something like that. Okay, so the fuel line comes up, goes into this, comes out here, comes down into the fuel pressure regulator, swoops down, regulates, boom, back into the tank. That is the completed fuel system, and it is super simple, very easy. You just need all the right parts. It does kind of suck because the tap is on this side, but that's okay. Again, you can pretty easily see off camera, you can easily see the actual gauge on here, so that won't be too much of an issue, but I think it's enough out of the way to not cause any problems. And once again, we are looking more and more ready for the first start. Wow, it looks so good. I'm so happy with this. For it being my first time actually running line, super simple. Really simple. I was a little bit nervous and just like, worried about doing custom stuff. But AN fuel lines are super easy to do. The CPE fittings are quite easy, and I was able to do them without, an actual bench and, to tighten them on. But that is all it is for the fuel rail. So now, when we actually get fuel to the system, we will be able to tighten this and kind of change the actual pressure of the fuel that's coming in. We'll set it to 60 PSI, and then that will be done. What I need is I need to get intake manifold bolts to actually bolt that down, and then we can do a final fitting on that. And then when the wiring harness gets in, we'll plug in all the sensors, get the starter plugged in, and everything all set. In the next video, we are going to tackle the power steering and get that all set. And then it will be about 3 sensors that I need to get, and I will get that when I get the intake manifold bolts. And then we will be ready to actually plug in the wiring harness. A little bit of touch-up stuff that I need to get to, but other than that, it's going very smooth. I do also need to get a small fan and get that going, but all in all, we are getting closer and closer to this build being done. So I'm super excited to actually drive the car and to have it running. I hope you guys are feeling the same way. I believe that that's going to end it for today's video, so I hope you guys all enjoyed and learned something. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below and I will try to get to them. And until next time, my name is Ryan. This is Project Race Car. Have an amazing day. Peace.